if you look at the format of the Amidah, the Tefillah, you have the first three blessings. The first blessing is referred to as the blessing of the patriarchs. In Hebrew, it's referred to as Ovos, the patriarchs. It concludes Mogen Avraham. The second blessing is a blessing which speaks about God himself in terms of who he is, what he does versus this existence. He's powerful, sustains life with kindness, resurrects the dead, heals the sick, supports the fallen, so on and so forth. Concludes, resurrects the dead. Then the third blessing is, you're holy, your name is holy, and those who praise you are holy. We conclude. Now, it's very interesting. Within a halachic context, these three blessings are seen as one blessing. For instance, any blessing in the Amidah, if you should make a mistake, the mistake is limited to that blessing. For instance, if a person in the winter, when we say the blessing over to receive blessing, we identify the season. Since it's the winter season, which is rain, so we say, V'sein talamota livrocha. God should bring dew and rain within the context of blessing. That's what we say in the winter time. From Pesach until after Sukkot, we say, instead of saying, give rain, dew and rain for blessing, we say the same bracha. It's not a time of rain. So let's say you inserted the wrong reference in the wrong season, that blessing is not a valid blessing. Only that blessing has to be repeated. If that blessing was not said correctly, you have to just repeat that blessing. But of course, you have to repeat it in its location. Let's say a person only realized he made a mistake, 3 blessings beyond that blessing. He has to go back there, correct it there, and repeat everything that follows that blessing. But let's say he realizes immediately after he completed the blessing, what does he have to do? He just has to repeat that blessing, nothing more than that. But regarding the first 3 blessings in the Amidah, although the 3 blessings, we see those blessings as one blessing. For instance, in the winter, we insert Mashiv Ruach Mordagoshen. We speak about what does God do? He causes the wind to blow and he brings rain. Mashiv Ruach Mordagoshen. If a person omits that in the winter, and that insertion is in the second blessing, it's not in the first blessing, and you realize that you had omitted it after you concluded the second blessing, which is Mechayim Esim, you have to go back to the very beginning of the Amidah. Although the omission was the second blessing, you have to go back to the beginning. What about he concluded the third blessing? He has to go back again to the very beginning. We see the first 3 blessings as one blessing. That's one blessing. All the subsequent blessings, each one is individualized. You did not say correctly, you correct that particular blessing. The first 3 we see as one. So if it was not said correctly, you have to go back to the very beginning and start all over again. Okay? What's so special about those first 3 blessings? Now, based on Rambam in the laws of tefillah, of prayer, what is a basic prerequisite when you stand in prayer? Basic prerequisite. You always have to have a sense you're standing before God. Let's say during the Amidah, you have no sense you're standing before God. Let's say a person would take the prayer book, read the words, he understands the words, but he doesn't have that sense. He's even speaking to God. It's not a valid prayer service. Since the reality is that you are having an audience with God, therefore you have to have a sense, I'm standing before him, speaking to him. If you don't even have a sense you're speaking to him, you're before him, it has no value whatsoever. Let's say you have a sense you're speaking You are before him, but for some reason, when your mind wanders, you're not focused on the words. But you have a sense you're standing before him. So then it depends. If it's during the first blessing, then it's a problem. The first blessing is the most important blessing of the Amidah. We refer to God, the God of Avram, the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob. Great, powerful, awesome, so on. The words, you don't focus on the words, even what you're saying. It's not valid. You have to minimally have in mind what you're saying. During the whole Amidah, you have to have a sense you're standing before God because it's an audience. Could you imagine standing before a king, even a mortal king, Lahavdil, and this is the creator, and you don't even have a sense of where you are? It's the ultimate level of disrespect. It's a level of disconnect that God will not respond to you because it's a level of lack of cognizance due to one doesn't value where he's at. Well, that's speaking about a person has Alzheimer's. And as a result of that, he doesn't know where he's at. I'm not saying he fulfills his obligation, because again, he doesn't meet the minimal criteria of even having a sense of what he's doing. But if you do have a sense of, you have the capacity to have a sense of what you're doing, and somehow you lose that sense, one does not fulfill this obligation of the Amidah. We had mentioned yesterday, we refer to God in many contexts at various appellations. Yud-Kei Vav-Kei, which connotes that he's infinite and he's master. The pronunciation is master. Then there's the spelling, he's master. Then there's the spelling, there's the name that he is exacting. He's the judge, Elohim, Almighty. We have various references. If you know you're saying the name of God, but you don't think about its connotation. You don't, when you say Yud-Kei Vav-Kei, you don't think he's infinite. Or you don't even think master. But you know you're saying the name of God. Post facto, it's valid. It's valid. You know you said the name of God. It's like saying G-O-D, except you said it in the Hebrew. But you didn't know Adni means master, or when it's spelled Yud-Kei Vav-Kei, it means was, is, and is in the future. It's valid, valid. But when we speak about the obligation for a person, for a Jew, to declare his belief in God twice a day through the declaration of the Shema, that first verse is a very important verse. We say, Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. Hear, O Israel, God Almighty, God is one. Okay? Now, in the Shema, when you declare, when a person is declaring the dominion of God, that he's the subject and God is the omnipotent supreme being, how could that declaration be a declaration if you don't even understand or you don't focus on the meaning of what that means? Could you imagine, you stand before a king and you say something and you think you're talking to a governor. You have to articulate, here you're accepting the yoke of heaven upon yourself through declaring his unity and his dominion. Therefore, you have to understand what those names and what are the connotation ramifications of what each of those appellations are. And if you don't, you're not Yotzei. One does not fulfill his obligation. So when you say Shema Yisrael Hashem, minimally you have to think master. When you say Elokeinu, you have to think Almighty. And when you say the second time Hashem, pronounce is master. Echad, he's one. If you think that, you've only fulfilled the obligation at a minimal level. Minimal. But to fulfill the obligation in an optimum level, you're supposed to think, and I'm quoting you the words of the Shulchan Aruch, the Code of Laws, when you say, Shema Yisrael, hear, O Israel, Hashem, Yud-Kei Vav-Kei, you're supposed to think, was, is in the future. In addition, master. So the two, you have to focus on two concepts. He is the master, and this master is infinite. Elokeinu, almighty. You could think the word almighty. Almighty means there's nothing beyond his ability. I mean, whatever power exists, he's almighty. He encompasses everything. Everything. That means every power of any angel, anything that exists anywhere, it's all contained within him. That's almighty. That's the meaning of the word almighty. And you're supposed to think that. You just think Elokeinu, and you think God. One fulfills his obligation at a very minimal level, but not thinking almighty, it's not at an optimum level. Now, the second time you think, you say Yud Kei Vav Kei, same thing, master who is infinite, because the spelling is infinite. Throughout the davening, or the Amidah, when you say Yud Kei Vav Kei, even if you don't think infinite, it's fine. All you have to have in mind is the pronunciation, which is master. That's sufficient. Even on a first level. But for the Shema to be at that first level, which is the optimum level, because you're accepting his dominion and you're identifying as a subject, you have to have an appreciation for what he represents. He's infinite, he's master. He's almighty. There's nothing beyond his ability. Echod. What is Echod? He's one. If you think one is simple. It means one. But he's one means a lot more than he's one. It doesn't mean he's one of a kind. It goes beyond he's one of a kind. His existence, there's no place in existence which is not his existence. One means everything is himself. Everything emanates from himself. Even that is not the optimum thought process. If you take a look in the Siddur, the Dalet of Echod, of the Dalet, is a large Dalet, larger than the other letters of Echod. Why is it written? And in the Torah, when it's written, it's also written larger. Because what you're supposed to think, when you say the word Echod, you're supposed to think he is in all four directions. There's the four corners of the earth, four corners of existence. He's one. To what degree he's one? That means there's nowhere in existence where he is not one. Although I'm here, he's all over. He's everywhere. That's Dalet. 4. We read at the time in this week's reading, when God gave the Torah at Sinai to us, he opened the heavens and the depths of the earth to show the Jews that nothing in existence exists outside of him, that he is the basis for every aspect of this. There's no other power. Whatever that angel is, these are all emanations that emanate from him. Everything emanates from him. That they should understand on an absolute level that it's only him and nothing but him. And that is the concept of Echod. He's one, nothing exists outside of him. It's even more than that, but that's sufficient to be considered optimally, thinking that. Okay, Mechaber says, Shulchan Aruch says, the Code of Laws, that's what you're supposed to think. Yud Kei Vav Kei, you must think master, was, is, future, infinite. When you say the Amidah, of course, it enhances it. If you do these things, but even if you don't, you fulfill your obligation on a first level basis. On a qualitative level, you fulfilled your obligation. But there's something addition you're supposed to think, which really brings it to another level. We say in the first paragraph of the Shema that we must love God with all our hearts, all our souls, and all our possessions. Meaning we have to demonstrate our love, that our hearts are fully dedicated to him. He's first and foremost. What about if it's a question you must forfeit your life for him? to give your life. There's certain instances a Jew has to give his life. If a Jew's given ultimatum, either murder or we will kill you. We'll murder you. You're not permitted to take a life to preserve your own life. That's one of the exceptions. You have to give your life. It's all sourced in text. What about if they tell you either you bow to the idol, idolatry, or we kill you? You have to give your life. Life does not supersede that moment. You must demonstrate your love for God, even to give your life. What if they tell you you must commit adultery or incense? Otherwise, we kill you. You must give your life. Because these three areas, these are the exception. Human life does not supersede these areas. And by giving your life, which is the most precious thing that we possess, that's the ultimate demonstration of our love for God. Okay? You must give your life. If God is truly the master, the creator, who's infinite, whenever you say that name, especially within the context of accepting and declaring your belief in who he is, and therefore you're speaking about the nature of your relationship with him. I am the subject, he is the master. In that context of declaration, what should one think? What level of dedication do you have to that master? You're supposed to think in your mind that even if the scenario should present itself where my life will be taken because I'm a Jew, I'm agreeable to give my life. Because having that in mind, that you're willing to give your life, although it's all in your mind and your emotion, God values that as if you actually gave your life. If a person is truly sincere in his heart and he means what he thinks and what he feels, which only God knows that, God values it as if you gave your life to sanctify God's name, which has the ultimate level of value. A Jew who gives his life to sanctify God's name. It's based on a verse in Psalms where the Zohar says, David HaMelech says, King David says in Psalms, Olecha horagnu kol hayom. So simply means, for you, we've been murdered every day. Jews throughout history have been murdered every day throughout history. So the Zohar says that a Jew is able to die for God continuously every day. Olecha horagnu kol hayom. For you, we die, we are murdered every day. How? If a person in his mind visualizes a situation where he's confronted, either to be pierced with a sword, if you don't bow, you'll be decapitated if you don't bow, you'll be burnt if you don't bow, you'll be thrown into a snake pit, you'll be crushed, you'll be pulverized. If you don't do certain things, and in your mind and emotion, you're committed that you will do that to give your life, God values it every time you have that thought. He values it as if you gave your life for him. So a person could die within the context of value endless times throughout a lifetime. Because God knows the sincerity of one's heart, and God knows if that scenario would present itself, you would do it. You don't have to actually die. Just thinking it, that if it would present as you would, God values it as that. So therefore, the Zohar says, when you say Shema Yisrael, this is our declaration, our belief. Hashem, you think master, you think infinite, was, is, future. And because if he is that, you think in your mind, if the scenario should present itself, where they will cut out my heart if I don't bow to the idol, if I don't commit murder, if I don't whatever, I will allow myself to be murdered, butchered. God values it as if you experience that at that particular moment. And you're credited for that. When you say Almighty, Elokeinu, you're supposed to have that same thought. If he's Almighty, and I am the subject of Almighty, what level of dedication do you have to this? I will give my life. But not only that, you're committed to him to a degree that if you have children, you will influence your children to value who he is, and you will disseminate it and impress other Jews to have an appreciation for who he is. That's what you're supposed to think when you say Elokeinu. When you say Hashem the second time, Master, Infinite, you'll give your life. Now let's talk Echod. If God is truly one, and he's all over, and everything is an expression of him, everything emanates from him, what are you supposed to think? That if the scenario should present itself, he will give you life. So each situation, repeatedly thinking this, so you could have in one Shema, you're able to give your life multiple times, and God values it as if you sanctify my name by giving your life multiple times every single day. When you say, love God with all your heart and all your soul. You think when you say, you think that scenario. If it should present itself, I will give my life. Again, I'm just telling this the Zohar. These are all the points. God vows it as if you gave your life. And throughout the day, let's say a person has a certain inspiration during the daytime, and you think in your mind, if in fact I'm confronted with this challenge and they give me an ultimatum, live or die, I will die. And you think that in your mind. At that moment, God vows it as if you gave his life to sanctify his name. There's no greater mitzvah than sanctification of God's name. So you're able to accumulate mega accomplishments if you're sincere in your heart and your mind and you focus on this reality. You know, a Jew is supposed to have a mezuzah on his doorpost. There was a custom, it's not an obligation, that when you pass the mezuzah, at least once a day, you touch it and you kiss the mezuzah. Custom. Not every mezuzah you see. But when you pass a mezuzah, you're supposed to think about something, at least minimally in the morning. When you leave your home or you leave your room, which the mezuzah is on that doorpost, what are you supposed to think when you, or say when you see that mezuzah? What's contained in the mezuzah? A parchment. And on that parchment is written the first two paragraphs of the Shema. That is the parchment contained in that mezuzah. That's our belief in God. That's what you're supposed to think. But when you, that's what is contained. What are you supposed to think and what are you supposed to say? So based on the Zohar, one is supposed to say, and verbally say it, Ani mamin be'emunah shleima. I believe with absolute faith, Shata yochid u'miyuchad sheba'olam. You are the one and only in all existence. That's what you're supposed to say. When you pass by the mezuzah, you kiss the mezuzah. Ani mamin be'emunah shleima. I believe with absolute faith, Shata yochid u'miyuchad ba'olam. And then, also, there's another expression, Ein od milevado. Nobody exists outside of God. Ein od milevado. But what about in addition to that, when you say that because you believe it with such a deep level of sincerity, you think, which should be the automatic following thought, and because if nobody exists outside of him, and he's the one and only, if you're confronted with a situation which would be contradictory to that, what would you do? You would naturally give your life. So even then, you think in your mind, and if in fact it should present itself, that something should be contradictory to that, I'm willing even to give my life to sanctify his name. That is the depth of your commitment and belief to him. Okay, we're going to continue this. And now we're going to